Hello, impact makers. This is Amelia Hirschfield here. I help entrepreneurs who are making a difference become more resilient so they can make a bigger impact. This looks like doing the internal work of knowing how to not be stressed and anxious in your own way anymore. And I do that by combining your Myers-Briggs type and inner child work to create this really cool, personalized way of getting in touch with yourself, knowing your fears, knowing your doubts, knowing your insecurities. And that is absolutely true for INFJs. INFJ impact makers are some of my favorite people to work with. I was typed as an INFJ for years and years and years, and definitely saw the functions working in my mind. So I am very familiar with the INFJ type. And there are 4 things that INFJs can really trip over. And if they're not aware of this, it can cause them to not be the person they want to be, not making the impact they want to make, not doing the things that they want to do because these things are tripping them up, not letting them get where they want to go. So the 4 things really come down to their 4 functions: introverted intuition, outward facing feeling, inward facing thinking, and outward facing sensing. So the first one, the inward facing intuition, can get caught up when it believes it knows what's going to happen without checking itself, right? So it's like, no, this is what I see happening. And that pattern recognizing part of you is super true, and it can feel almost psychic, and it's been so right with things that you just trust it, right? Because you're good at it. It's what you spend your most time in. It's what you enjoy doing. And the challenge is when you trust this too much, it can often leave you blind to where you're wrong. So that is definitely something that can get you into trouble, and then also cause you lots of anxiety because you're like, I see this thing happening, and it's usually not for your benefit. So like, I see this negative thing happening in the future, and so we're just not going to go there, whether that's for like a good reason, like no, like that, like the facts are lining up to support this, or feelings are how we feel about it lines up to support this, or is it just because of fear and we're anxious about something? So this introverted intuition kicks in and says, no, we're just not going to go here, and then that's going to solve the anxious and nervous fear. So that's one way the introverted intuition can hold your business up, stop opportunities, stop ways of putting yourself out there, and keep you where you are, even if it's not where you want to be, because it's comfortable here. The second part is with that outward facing feeling, and that that outward facing feeling is so caring. It's so loving. You love people, you love understanding people, and that's a huge part of it. And at the same time, it's a major challenge for you, because if you're not giving that attention to yourself, it can be really hard to have the energy, to have the courage, to have the focus on you, so you can go out there and play the bigger game, make the impact that you want to make, help how you want to help in your own way, because it can spend too much time focusing on other people, solving people's problems, helping people, enabling people, all of these things. And just being aware of that is one thing, but if you know how to get this outward facing feeling to pull back, which can be very scary, especially if it's stuck on overdrive. It can leave you exhausted, leave you resenting people, leave you doing things that you don't want to do, but you feel like you should be doing it. Those are all signs that outward facing feeling is stuck on overdrive. So that is one way that you can stay anxious, just helping people, feeling like, you need to do this. Other people might not like you if you don't do that. So that outward facing feeling is definitely one way that can make you anxious, can make you triggered with your business. And the third way, that introverted thinking part, which is so dear, so important to the INFJ, it can get triggered by thinking that it knows what's best. It thinks in very black and white terms. So it's like either I know it or I don't, right? It's either this or this. There's like no gray area in between. And when it gets too stuck on like this is the answer, it can miss other opportunities that might be helpful for you in between this and this solution, between the 100 and 0. So make sure that when you are thinking about things, when you're thinking about decisions, especially big decisions, you're not just stuck on this one outcome. You're like looking at what are all the things that can happen, and then making sure that this is the best outcome both for you and for other people. So is it harmonious for everyone as well? And that's one way to keep that that introverted thinking part in check. But it tries so hard. It's very intelligent. It's very part of those INFJs. So that is that introverted thinking. The outward facing sensing is can get very tripped up by really being at the receiving end when the rest of these parts are being unhealthy. So if like your introverted intuition is tripping itself up, if your outward facing feeling is tripping up, if your inward facing thinking is tripping itself up, everything falls downhill to your precious little outward facing sensing part. And that part of you is very sweet and very compassionate and loves to play, but at the same time, it might not know how to do that when it's really coming down to this part to like take care of you because the rest of you isn't showing up the way it needs to. And that can be a lot for this part of you, because it's not meant to handle the decision, like the gathering the information and doing everything that these other parts aren't doing. So when it's when it's having a hard time, it can often reach for like alcohol or food or maybe cigarettes if you smoke when you're stressed. So like things that make it sensory feel better, like feel better right now, like instant fixes. Those are great examples of what it can do when it's stressed out and how it kind of reacts to when it's stressed out. It's like, no. These other parts aren't making me feel better, especially this outward facing feeling that's supposed to be helping me out. And it's not doing its job. So it just has to reach for something that makes it feel better. So it can reach for these unhealthy things that give it that like numbing salute, that numbing feeling, that instant like, okay, this will feel better, but it's not good for you long term. So that's a sign that you can be, that this outward facing sensing part of you is having a hard time and it's anxious. If you are, doing things that are sensory not healthy for you, you're not eating well, you are maybe sitting too much, you're not drinking enough water, you're drinking alcohol too much, check in with this part of you and see like, hey, is this part okay? Or is it needing some help? Because this part of you is quite tender. And when it's not doing well, it's really hard for the rest of you to do well because it's going to control everything until it gets the attention that it has and needs. So those are 4 ways that you as an INFJ can get caught up in business and, making bad decisions, being anxious, staying in the stress that you have. And the more you're aware of this, the easier it is going to be to get out of it. And if you want some help with that, I've got an anxiety workbook that helps you, like breaks down, like, how are you feeling? So, and that can be done for each of these different parts of you, all the 4 parts. And then teaches you to identify how to address those needs of those different parts, because until you do that, getting these parts to really calm down and work for you is going to be really tough. And that workbook is $14 US. So it's a good workbook. I presented it on Richard Branson's private island about a year ago, and the entrepreneurs there were really impressed by that work. Some of them were still using the workbook months later. So if you want help with that, that is a solution for you. And otherwise, I will see you on the next video.